Welcome to ROI Unfiltered, the podcast that goes beyond investments, the deals, and the headlines, digging deep into the real stories, the grit, the raw inspiration behind the success of entrepreneurs, athletes, and entertainers on their way to the top. No facades, no fluff, just pure, unfiltered truth. This is ROI Unfiltered.
I am sitting here today with Ethan Babil, who is with 103rd Street, which is a venture capital firm, and which I love because you're the youngest entrepreneur that we've had on the show so far. And I think that your story is super incredible to where you've gotten at today already. But we're here in Denver, Colorado. You're still a student of DU, Denver University. And he's started multiple businesses already as an entrepreneur and just out there hustling, doing his thing. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Totally. So my name's Ethan Babil, and I grew up in Miami, Florida. I'm 21 as of last month, and I'm a student here at DU. I'm a junior and just getting after it.
Nice. Yeah. So we actually met because we did a few business deals together. And I know that you started a laundry business here at DU. And then now we're working on 103rd Street, which is the venture capital firm. How did you get into your businesses to start with?
Yeah.
And how did it lead you to where you're at today?
Totally. So I'll give you my backstory, like my history.
Yeah.
I've been an entrepreneur since I was 13. I don't know if it was just my atmosphere growing up in Miami or if it was my parents or maybe even a little bit of both. And I just started going after it. So my first business, I won't even get started on that, but I was hustling tourists on the beach. I was doing anything to make $1. And the original goal for the reason why I wanted to just make money was I wanted a go-kart. My parents were like, we're not buying you a go-kart. So I was like, fine, buy my own go-kart. So I was like already applying to jobs at restaurants, but it just was not happening because I was 13. So I started just hustling on the beach, which led to another business, to ultimately start Omni Boards. I was a semi-professional wakeboarder at the time. So I was, grinding the cable, wakeboarding every single day I could. And after competitions and after noticing, this lack of directional boards in the market, I was like, I'm going to make my own mark because I wasn't winning the competitions. Shout out Jaden Scaris. He was my best friend, wins all the competitions.
Were you competing against him?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just trailing the pack. I was like just getting by. So I realized that, okay, if I'm not going to be the best at the sport, might as well make a mark in the sport. So I started my own wakeboards with the idea to have my own little funky twist to them. I was making directional boards. They weren't known at the time, especially in that sport. It's like one board only rides in one direction. They're like funky shapes. So built them, manufactured them, tried to scale them, but they weren't selling. So while I was in debt, I was like, how can I make some money? What goes with wakeboards? Swimwear. So I made my first bathing suit, which pre-sold, and I think I sold 100 units like without even manufacturing any, just based off a picture. I was like hustling them out in my high school, just like, yo, buy this. Like, what do you think about this? Like, it was pretty funny. So I had that first round. Now I had money to buy more. I sold over 1,000 units in total, which then brought me over to the University of Denver. Business was,
Yeah. And before we get there, so how did you get the capital to start Omni Boards originally? Because did you start that at 13 years old? Or were you in high school?
I was in high school at the time.
Okay.
My
Were you working
entrepreneurial
too?
journey started. Yeah. So the wakeboards, I bought one wakeboard and just started riding that at the park to hopefully get some interest in, the people that I rode with at competitions. Just try to get as much like FaceTime on these boards as possible.
Yeah.
And once I started gaining traction, I was like, okay, I'm ready to buy a mass order of boards.
This episode is brought to you by Crispy Cocktails. All right, listen, you're out here living that Colorado life, hitting the trails, floating the river, or just kicking back after a long day. You don't want some sugary, fake-tasting seltzer that leaves you bloated and regretting it. That's why Crispy Cocktails was made. Colorado's #1 ready-to-drink vodka-based cocktail. 6 times distilled premium vodka, All natural flavors, gluten-free, and 7% ABV. Crisp, refreshing goodness in a can. Blue Squeeze, Tropical Smash, King Peach, Cherry Press, whatever vibe you're on, they got it. Born right here in Colorado to fit your lifestyle. And stay crispy. Crispy cocktails available now at over 500 Colorado locations. For more information, visit crispycocktails.com.
But I didn't have the capital. But I had a bright mind, so I started selling somewhere. And that first order was all pre-sale. I didn't spend $1.
So you're able to get the money up front.
That's right.
In order to manufacture and work on the wakeboards.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And from that business, it was starting to just pick up traction a lot with the swimwear, women's and men's. And I came out here to Denver, and all the sales were in person. So I was knocking on student doors, like in my dorm freshman year, and being like, "Hi, my name's Ethan. Nice to meet you. Like, would you like to look at my inventory of swimwear?" And like, people are, it's just such like a unique, like, who does that? So they're like, "Yeah, you could come in." So I'm in these like random kids' dorms, like trying on swimwear. I had like 4 different colors at the time, men's and women's, and they were doing these like, you know, fashion shows for me. Like, while I was trying to sell them, I didn't sell a single pair because it was snowing outside at 0 degrees.
Yeah, it's hard to sell bathing suits when it's, you know, snowing outside.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So at that point, I'm like, okay, I could do one of 2 things. I could either drop out of school and take omniboards full time. Not happening. My mom is not, that's not going to happen. Or switch the business model. And I did just that. So I shut down omniboards and I started water laundry. The reason behind that is there's a wash dry fold service at pretty much every single big city and every single big school. So I was like, okay, why isn't it at Denver? Did a little bit of market research.
What gave you the idea?
Everyone needs to get laundry done. Again, I was just looking for ways to put cash in my pocket. So what's the best way to do this? A service that everyone will need. And that's what I thought at the time. So did some market research, ended up applying to the school for a grant. I got the grants. Got 2 grants actually. DU is actually really, really great with that. Their entrepreneurship program is quite solid. And if you have an idea, like they're pretty on top of who they want to help. So DU students, anyone that's watching, like,
so how did you get the grant and what was the process going through that?
Totally. It's a lot of just videos, a lot of screenings, interviews, and you could get up to $8,000, no, $7,000 in grants. The first grant is a micro grant, and that's $1,000. And then the second grant is like, you get $6,000 plus a mentor, plus one-on-one help, plus being a part of their accelerator program. So it's quite nice. And
very cool.
They definitely helped me out. But you know, the one piece that was really starting to deteriorate the business was how much sweat I put into it. So you could catch me when at the peak of this business, I was at the dining hall, I was out front of dorms, I was in the laundry rooms, I was anywhere that students were just active on campus, and I was tabling, just slanging out like laundry bags, like hoping that I could get one sale. I could get one sale here. I get one sale here, and just going crazy. So all in all,
walk me through that business model. So you're out there handing out laundry bags, hoping that you get customers, and the idea was to basically have them fill it up with their dirty laundry, and then you would take it, launder it.
So this is the process. It's actually quite unique. At the beginning, you typically think, okay, wash dry fold service is you go to a laundromat, they do it, they fold it, they drop it off. But that was too expensive. In college, students are on a run, like
tight budget.
Tight budget. So how can I bring this down as cheap as possible? Because that's what I was originally doing, and a bag would get up to like $64. And right then there alone, like the students like, that's so much. Like that's like pretty much a quarter of my like allowance. And I just spent it on laundry.
And how much would it cost to go to a laundromat just to do your whole entire wardrobe?
About $40 to $60, depends on.
That was with your company, but if I went and did it myself, about how much would it cost?
In the dorms, it was costing you right about $6 to $7, depending on the student.
So you're talking like 10 times.
So I'm like, how can I bring this down? So I had a strategic partner, and that brought it down to about $25, $30, still too expensive. So then I started thinking, okay, how can I make this as simple and as cheap as possible? And I came up with a model that's very similar to Uber, where I had something called water washers and then, water customers. So the water washer is your junior, your senior, your off-campus housing. And they all have laundromats in their home, and they're all looking for a way to make an extra buck. So I was knocking on all these doors all around that, so the campus is like a square. There's houses. So I went to each house in a 3-block radius, and it took me about a week and a half, covered all the doors. In total, I had just under 60 water washers, and I had this marketplace. So now a customer,
Interesting.
being a student, would call the laundry, and the water washer would confirm it. We'd pick it up, drop it off at their house, then wash, dry, fold it. In less than 24 hours, we'd pick it up, drop it off. Now, this was a logistical nightmare. I screened all of the water washers, but again, they're students.
Yeah.
So it was inconsistent. It was not timely, and it was sometimes dirty, and they lost things. So,
Yeah. And on top of it too, you're dealing with other people's clothes, their
Yep.
undergarments and
Yep.
stuff like that.
Yep.
And I can only imagine if you're like, losing items, or, you always like lose a sock or whatever in the laundry and stuff. So
The beauty of this model, though, I brought the cost down to $12.
nice. Very good.
Yeah.
So you were able to bring it down to $12, but then you were running into logistic nightmares and stuff like that.
And that's what ran the business out of.
Okay.
Because we got up to 60 customers, and consistently about 15 to 16, depends on the week, of like reoccurring customers. But it was a mess. So, again, like the drop off number, like I could have had 60 reoccurring customers, but it was inconsistent and not a great service. So,
Yeah.
Although it was a good business, it was possibly sustainable. It was very scalable.
It definitely had potential.
It just wasn't able to hit,
Yeah.
which was unfortunate. Like that was
How long did you end up doing that for?
a year and 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what made you decide to pull the plug on that one?
Yeah. So I had the offer to sell it again for parts, and I was at this number. I was able to break even. And
Okay.
I was like burnt out. I was so burnt out.
Yeah. Well, and it's a testament to you. And I love to hear your hustle, how you went in a 3-block radius and knocked on everybody's doors. You're handing out laundry bags at the cafeteria. You're doing whatever it
I was
takes to
waking
be
up
successful.
at 4:30 in the morning with chalk and going to campus, like going to like hot campus spots and writing like water laundry, doing like hopscotch with like water laundry logo. Like I was doing everything for students to like unconsciously see water laundry, to then when they see water laundry, they're like, wait, I've heard of you before, to then be like, I'll try the service.
Yeah.
And it was a hustle.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely a hustle. So, well, that's the thing. And that's what makes a good entrepreneur too. You put in the time, you put in the work, you put in the effort. And then if it doesn't work out and it's a logistical nightmare, you're bringing the cost down, you're trying to raise customers, you're able to do it. And then just, it was a logistical nightmare. You were able to sell the business,
Yeah.
break even,
Yeah.
get out of it, because I know you have a good mind. You're creative. You can, think well about things, and you've got a lot of ideas. So is that when the idea of 103rd Street came into play?
Totally. Yeah. So
Okay.
around this time was when I met you. So post acquisition, I still, like, again, I broke even. Like I worked for a year and 3 months, and I like made flat. So I'm like, okay, I need to make some money. And I came in here, I middlemaned your t-shirts for
Yeah.
CNG, and I did a couple other deals with some moving companies and another laundry company to just, get some money in my pocket. And around this time, I don't know what it was. Even when I was walking over here before speaking with you, I was trying to remember, like, when was the time that I got interested in venture? I remember everything leading up to it, but I don't remember the initial, like, aha moment, like, this is me. It just kind of fell on my plate. Like it just seems like inevitable. Like it was fate that I would go into that route from my 8 years of entrepreneurship history, of ideation, of creation. And I just remember going for it. And what that means is, in the Denver metro area, there's around 22 venture funds. So with my grit and exactly kind of where you see my story going is I knocked on every single venture fund. And these were not just houses next to campus. These were like high-end like buildings. Like I was not supposed to be there. I put on my nicest shirt, like went up to the receptionist, and I got the name. It says the general partner's name on all the websites. So I'm like, I'm meeting with X, Y, and Z, with X venture fund. And they're like, sure, like they're on floor, whatever. And then I go to the elevator and they just buzz me in. They put me onto the floor. Elevator doors open up. It's like this white office glass. Like almost all of them were the same.
And you could see the entire city.
Yeah, yeah. And like I walk in and I'm like, I remember the picture on the phone that I saw. So I'm like going into the offices. Nope, not him, not her, not him. Aha, that's my man. So I'd like walk into these offices like, hi, my name's Ethan. Who are you? What are you doing here? Like, well, I just want to take you out to a cup of coffee. I want to learn about the space. And they're like, get out. Like, what are you doing? So out of, I would say successfully got into about 8 offices. The 22 venture's weird. You could work from home. You don't technically need an office.
Yeah.
So out of the 8, one of which said yes to sitting down with me. Shout out Stout Street.
Were you sending out emails too to these people, or
Nothing,
you're just
going?
Yeah,
I'd
I
show
love that about you. You just going, showing up, following up, being persistent,
Yeah.
going straight to the door,
Yeah.
talking to people. Because I know a lot of other entrepreneurs or other people, they try to send out a lot of emails, which isn't a bad thing. But I think that showing up and seeing somebody
a lot.
face to face says a lot and can open up doors a lot quicker, a lot easier,
Yeah.
a lot better than just sending emails and then it gets stuck in the spam folder or the junk or whatever, just getting easily deleted.
Yeah.
So-
this particular scene of being out front of Stout Street is going to be in my movie because it was like straight out of like, it was straight out of a movie. I walked into this office, and again, it wasn't the most glamorous office. It was above a hair salon. So I show up to the address. I'm like, this doesn't, okay. All right. So I go up above the hair salon. I find the address. I'm knocking on this door. I sat outside of Stout Street's door for about 45, 50 minutes. And I would just hear every once in a while, like there's someone on the phone. Whenever I heard like a goodbye, like, okay, bye, I would knock on the door. And then I did that until the door finally opened and did my pitch and ended up sitting down with the GP and
So the general partner.
yeah, general partner, and just was able to pick his brain, ask as many questions as I want. I had 45 minutes to just chat like we're doing right now. And the goal was to find some type of solution. How can I help venture capitalists? And the problem that I really struck on was deal flow and due diligence. Either the deal flow being the amount of businesses that are going into their pipeline to invest in, due diligence, the credibility of the business,
and the quality of the
quality.
businesses that are looking for
Exactly
venture
right.
capital, right?
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Because they're getting thousands of inquiries. So my thought process was, okay, what if I vetted the business? What if I found the business and then introduced them?
Okay. So you want to build a platform to basically, build a structure in place so that it bridges the gap between the founders of startups or people that need money or capital
Yep.
and the VC firms.
Yep.
And so that way the VC firms don't have to sift through thousands and thousands of entries. And you have a process where you can kind of vet those people, figure out the ones that potentially have a high rate of return and look a little bit less risky than some of the other ones.
Totally.
And then, create those relationships and partners and introduce both sides and then kind of just go from there. And then would you look at structuring the deals too?
So phase 1A was just getting myself in the room. How can I meet as many venture funds as possible while also having deal flow? And I struck on a newsletter. So at this time, I was going over to Florence to study abroad, and I was working like a dog. I was partying like a dog. I was just having so much fun. And we could talk a little bit more about this, but balance. I think I found my true balance out there because I was so far away from home, because I only had myself. I needed to make sure that everything was perfect while also growing this business. So on that note, for about 12 weeks straight, I had a weekly newsletter that found, vetted, and wrote, and ultimately pitched the business to venture funds. In that 12 weeks period, I met right over 100 venture funds. We got a total of 437, I believe was the number last time I checked, subscribers on the newsletter, and just was pushing this out. I was doing weekly content. I was promoting these businesses. And
Was your newsletter, was it just email marketing
yeah,
basically?
yeah, strictly,
Okay.
just straight
Strictly
email.
email.
So
Okay.
the value prop when I reached out to a lot of these venture funds was close to nothing. I mean, I was saying that I'm going to find the next diamond in the rough globally, and the only thing I need from you is your email. So I would, create these relationships, and then after a couple of weeks, and they see like my persistence and hard work, I would hopefully ask them for a phone call, and most of which didn't respond, but I did get a good handful that said yes, and now I was able to ask more questions and find more problems. So that leads us to about 2 months ago. I continued this newsletter, and I started something called Fun Finder. So I implemented Claude's API into my website.
And Claude's API is
Is it an AI?
okay.
You could
Like
find
ChatGPT.
like ChatGPT. It's just
Okay.
it's better with data. So beforehand, I wrote every single venture fund that I reached out to. I put on a spreadsheet. I made sure that I put all their verticals, so anything from what they invest in, their thesis, their ticket size, their assets under management, their geolocation, the whole nine. So I had this massive spreadsheet of just venture funds, over 900. And I created this platform that founders can now go onto the site. They can input some basic information, pitch deck, ARR, what they're looking for, like how much investment, like whether it's a safe convertible note, some basic information when you're looking to raise capital, and submit. And in less than 30 seconds, they get anywhere between 3 and 10 venture funds that they matched with from my CRM. And then from that point, I now have the business information, and I send the deal over to the venture fund. I don't have relations with all venture funds, but that's what I'm trying to build. So it's like constant deal flow, constant just like throwing this like hatchet into these big venture funds, hoping that they'll see the company, hoping that they'll see my hard work to ultimately want to work with me.
Yeah. And this Fun Finder,
Yep.
Is it a website
It's a
or
website.
is it an
Yeah.
app? So it's a website.
Yeah, you could find it 103rd.adver.co.
Okay.
Domains work.
All right. And how many companies are you getting that are filling out
Great question.
this survey and going through your portal?
So this is a big metric. So when I was doing the newsletter, I was getting about 8 new clients per week, right?
Okay.
Pretty solid. Now with Fun Finder, I'm getting over between 40 and 50 clients a week. Depends on, my outreach. Depends. There's still a lot of work that goes into it. There's a lot of networking. There's a lot of pushing it. But if you could put in the same hours on the newsletter versus same hours on Fun Finder, like hand in hand, Fun Finder is exponentially better. So that's what I am really, really leaning on. And that's where a lot of my deal flow comes into play. And I could talk a little bit about my business structure with this. So I'm not a venture fund. That's phase 2. I'm right now on phase A. I'd put that at phase 3. Phase 1 is building up deal flow, making sure I have the best businesses coming into 130 as possible. So what that looks like is a lot of outreach on LinkedIn, a lot of emails, a lot of demo days, accelerators, just really, really immersing myself in the industry of startup culture. My focus is in health and wellness, whereas before when I first started Fun Finder, it was agnostic. So I was taking anything fintech to biotech to prop tech, to just anything you could think of. And it was honestly, I'm a solo founder. It got out of hand.
Yeah.
And I was like,
And you're the only one doing that.
Yeah.
Solo founder doing
Yep.
it by yourself.
Yep.
And I like the fact that you're working with health companies now and health startups. And so talk a little bit about that too, because you're able to kind of mix your passion with business
Yeah.
with your passion for life and health and exercise and those types of things. So you kind of wanted to niche it down a little bit and then focus on those. So what are some of the companies that you're fighting with that?
Yeah. Well, the people with the most impact in this world were never chasing dollar signs. And for the longest point of my life, I was chasing dollar signs. And there's a point in my life from like 13 to like 16. I was always ambitious. I said that I was going to graduate high school a millionaire. Didn't happen. So now I'm in college and I'm saying I'm going to graduate college millionaire. It's gonna happen. But at the time, like when I was younger, I just remember like this constant affirmation I tell myself, and like it was a running joke in my family. It's like the money will come, and like I was always, I mean, like it was bad. My ego's to the moon. I have this chip on my shoulder. Like I gotta definitely like flick it off, because sometimes it can get really bad. But that ego would always tell me the money will come, the money will come. When I came to school and I started water laundry, I was chasing dollar signs. So then that's what brought me to 103rd Street of creating as much impact as possible, helping as much as possible.
Yeah.
And the more value you provide, I mean, that's just like the philosophy of money.
Yeah.
Like it,
And I was just going to say that too. The more value you can bring to the table and to others and to your customers, your
Mhm.
clients, to your businesses, to your, investors, then the money will come,
Totally.
right? The
Totally.
more value you give out, the more money you receive in return.
Totally.
So, and that's a good way to look at it. So rather than, chasing the dollar, you're looking at,
Passion.
giving value, being passionate, trying to help people. And then by doing that, the results will come, basically.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So I'll lean into health and wellness. I mean, I've been in the gym at a very young age. I've always cared about health. I care about longevity. It's not about the sprint, it's about the marathon.
Yeah.
It's
It's about the lifestyle, right? And the
Exactly.
habits that you build,
Exactly.
healthy habits. And I think that our culture needs more of that. And it's starting to go that direction, right?
Fortunately, it is.
Yeah.
It
So,
is.
so what are some of the companies that you're seeing that are filling out the Fund Finder and coming through your portal
Mm.
that you're interested in, that you like to see get funded, that are working with your VCs?
Totally. So just to keep it simple, I love CPGs. So that stands for
What-
customer product goods.
Okay.
So anything from protein bars to protein shakes to energy drinks.
Okay.
I'm seeing a lot of natural electrolyte or even cognitive functional, like anything that enhances your routine to lean out of coffee and stimulants. That's super interesting to me. Leaning on that neurotech. So anything from like BCI, so brain computer interface technology. I'm part of this network that has so many interesting founders that are creating the most thing. Like I don't understand quarter, like more than that. I don't understand maybe 3/4 of what these people are talking about, but it's that learning and it's that fire that you see these other founders have that lights me up.
Yeah. And it's super cool to be ingrained with those types of people, to learn more, to see where, tech is going in the health and wellness
Yep,
space.
yep.
And it's incredible to think about what can happen in the next 10, 20 years, and what's going to be out in the market and what it's going to affect us and our health, and how it's going to do those things.
Totally.
So that's really cool.
And then even just to put a close on like what I'm looking for, any solution that's in the wellness or the fitness space.
Okay. All right. That's very cool. So yeah, and I'm sure, I mean, that's a huge space. And I'm sure that you find a ton of different companies that are looking for that. And I know that you've been able to already fund a few deals.
Yeah.
And you've only been doing this for how long now?
A year and a month.
Okay, so just over a year.
Yeah.
And we're hustling. We'll getting with it. We've set up the website.
That's right.
So after we're here, what is phase 2 of your project?
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you the big scale. So I'm right now on a teeter with phase 2. Right now I have a one-to-one approach. So I'm personally dealing with these founders. I'm personally pushing out these deals one-to-one. I am either considering going for a one-to-many approach. So a platform that is able to mass send out these deals. I won't get super in depth with that because it's just an ideation stage. It's not fully set.
Okay.
So that's one teeter. So one to many, or possibly creating some type of opportunity for passionate students, individuals that are passionate about venture and growing the industry, and having more of an education platform that would ultimately lead to more deal flow for 103rd Street. So again, two very big ideas, and I have to figure this out in the next month, as that is like the next step. Both will lead me to phase 3, which is a venture fund of my own. So what I say is I will have an $100+ million fund by the age of 30. And how I'm going to get there is by having deal flow like no other venture fund has, creating media founder friendly before financial gains. You see this a lot with a lot of venture funds. I mean, although they say, we are here for the founder, we are here to support, we're here to help, lend the hand, it's still a financial institute at the end of the day. But if founders look at us first as a media outlet, they look at us as a tool to help them pursue their goals, they're going to look at us completely different than most financial institutions.
Yeah, for sure. And what you've got is kind of a SaaS product, software as a service, as far as your fund finder.
Yep.
And then bringing those people together can give tons of value to your customers, to your VCs, to everybody that's involved. So I'm super excited to see how this progresses and how you're going to get there, and to watch you through the next, decade
Yeah.
to get to that point and realize your goals, and basically give value to millions of people. So I think that that's super cool.
Totally.
I want to go back a little bit and touch on the balance piece that you talked about a little bit, because that's one of the hardest things for us entrepreneurs to do. And you're out there hustling, you're going to school, you're starting a business, you're doing multiple businesses, you're doing everything. How do you keep balance in your life, and why do you think that it's so important?
It's incredibly hard. That's my struggle to life. I can't find balance. And without balance, you need stillness to find balance, and you need clarity to find balance.
Yeah.
So I think the first step is being fully tapped into the self and understanding who you are. And it's really hard to do that, especially at a young age.
And how do you do that?
Journaling, reflecting. I'm on this new philosophy where for the last month, maybe even 2 months, I was obsessed with filling my calendar. Every hour has to be productive. Every hour has to go into something that will excel me in my life. I was taking close to 11 to 12 phone calls in a day. And that's not on top of the work, and that's on top of my schoolwork. That's on top of going to class and keeping relationships and friends and family close to me, because that's very important. And it got really, really tough. So finding myself is everyone's own personal journey. I'm sure you have your own stories about when you fully said, I know who I am. I know what I want in life. And that's a feat in itself.
Yeah. I think that it's super difficult, and I think it's a struggle your entire life. Getting to know yourself is a journey. It's a process, and everybody goes through different phases of life, right? So who I am now is a lot different than the person that I was, a few years ago or even yesterday. And so I always talk about what does the best version of myself look like?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of it has to do with balance, and how I learned and continue to learn more about myself is what I call my EMBs, or my early morning behaviors. A lot of people work on their bodies, they eat every day, they shower every day, they do all these different things every day, but a lot of people don't work on their minds every day, or work on themselves every day, so to speak. So my EMBs, or my early morning behaviors, can consist of waking up and listening to a motivational video, and I get into a 10 to 15 minute meditation. And after I do that, I usually pray. And then after that, I journal for 10 or 15 minutes. And then I like to read at least for 15 to 30 minutes of a good book, and kind of get into that. And usually it's the biggest problem that I'm trying to solve, or it's a self-help book or whatever. But right now I'm reading Inner Excellence by Jim Murphy. It's a freaking fantastic book. Probably one of my top fives now. And it talks about everything that you're talking about now, like having balance in your life, and, figuring out self-mastery and letting the ego go, and really trying to figure out a way that you can be unoffendable, unirritable, and just really open to yourself, to figuring out how to master yourself, learn who you are, and become the best version of yourself. And so, that's a lot of the stuff that I do. And I think that journaling is great, and reflecting on those things is great. Having gratitude in your life as well is huge. And one of the things that I like to do too is talk about the three most important things that I have to do every day and make sure that they're,
I was literally about to.
yeah, totally. So go ahead.
Yeah, so that's my whole new philosophy. It's pick three things that I'm going to do towards the business. And that could be a phone call, that could be a pitch deck, that could be a task that you have to complete. Three things. That's it.
Yeah.
So making sure that it's as meaningful as possible and as effective as possible. Because if you're doing 12 things at once, you sometimes have a fog, or sometimes don't have clear direction on what the priorities are. And if you have to only pick from three things, I mean, you got to make sure that those are the most important things.
Yeah.
And the reason how I came to that is, if you look at the greats, he's, financially greats, like Richard Branson,
Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett,
Yeah. Mark Cuban.
they have time for everything. And then when I look into my internal circle, I know a handful of really, really wealthy individuals, and they have time for everything. They're not on the clock. They're not talking about how busy they are. They're talking about the impact that they're making.
Yeah.
How do they do it? How do they have time for everything? But also being able to be as successful as they are. So that is really where my mind has been wrapped around these past couple of weeks. And I'm really leaning into that, because you do have time for everything.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how you spend it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that it's all in the habits that we build, the lifestyles that we, coordinate for ourselves, and how we make ourselves better, and how we can build those habits and healthy habits into our lives. And I know that you do a ton of that because you want to be super successful. And I know that you don't drink alcohol.
No.
And you're 21,
Yeah.
but you partied for a while. You don't smoke.
No.
You don't smoke weed, anything like that. I know that sleep is very important to you. And so talk about some of the healthy habits that you've put in that have made you become a better entrepreneur and help the momentum keep growing, keep building, and stay on track, to have balance, to have a good lifestyle, and to stay on top of everything that you need to in your busy lifestyle.
Completely. Cognitive function. That is life. I mean, that's health and that's wellness. Your wellness is so important. Where your mind's at. And the way to have a really, really open and transformative and sharp, intuitive, intellectual mind is by having the best inputs. So if you're leaning away from alcohol, if you're leaning away from weed, if you're leaning away from caffeine, I only drink green tea, sometimes black tea if I really need a pick me up. You're really putting in the best inputs, because there's no bad outputs that are being inputted. The reason behind that, I'm not saying that I'm never going to drink, I'm never going to smoke, because that kind of falls into our balance. But at this point in my life, I'm putting it to the side. In this chapter, it's not something I'm thinking about, because your 20s are the most transformative years of your life.
Yeah.
And noticing this and really leaning into it is paramount.
Yeah. And your goals are bigger than having bad habits.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that our minds are our most powerful thing. And so I love the input analogy that you put there. And so, taking care of our minds is the most important thing that we really should do in our lives. And I know that it takes a ton of sacrifice and it takes a ton of discipline. How do you kind of stay on that track when there's so many different things coming at us in this, lifestyle, in this, busy world that we live in? And being a college student, I mean, you're in the environment of drinking and smoking and partying all the time.
It's tough, and I'm not perfect. I'll put it at that. Like I lean into some bad habits. If I say that I've never drank in my life, especially in my 20s, that's a lie. If I say that I've never smoked in my 20s, that's also a lie. But it's 362 days out of the year, I'm on top of my stuff. And I think that's the beauty of life. It's enjoyment. And a lot of the time, if sacrificing your health for a deeper connection or a a more present night, then like it's okay. And I think that's the gem to discipline. It's being able to say yes to some things and no to others. And if you are able to wake up the next day and get back after it, one night, it's not going to kill you. And that is something that I really had to teach myself.
Yeah. And it's almost like, definitely don't beat yourself up so much if you fall off the path
Yeah.
or whatever,
Yeah.
because things will happen. And one thing that I like to do when I go on my sober streaks, and I'll do 30, 60, 90 over 100 days at a time, then when it's time to celebrate, I really do like to celebrate.
Which
For sure.
that's
You
the
know what I'm
problem,
saying?
Like
Yeah.
then you binge,
Yeah.
you eat too much, you drink too much, you smoke too much.
Well, and that's one of the things that you told me too. It's like, you found the balance, but if it was like you were eating a bunch of donuts, you would eat all the donuts, or you wouldn't drink any at all. And, or the same thing with drinking. If you drank, you would drink too much, or it wouldn't be anything at all. And so it sounds like you've kind of found that balance and you found what works best for you. Right.
Yeah, there's definitely sexier ways of saying it,
Yeah.
but I'm an addict
Yeah.
at heart. So like making sure that I'm addicted to the right things and
Addicted to success.
addicted to success,
Yeah.
addicted to love, and addicted to
Joy and happiness.
joy, happiness, success.
Well, success is the entrepreneur's ultimate drug,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
yeah, right?
that's what we're chasing.
Yeah, definitely. So, well, I really appreciate you being here. I know that you're going to do special big things in your life. I'm looking forward to see how your business grows. And it's so inspirational to see somebody so young, working so hard, knocking on doors, trying different things, giving value to other people, and really working hard to get things done, because I know that you're going to hit your goals. I know that you're going to be successful. And I know that you're going to make it there just because of how hard you work, and the attitude that you have, and the discipline that you have in your life, and all of that good stuff. So thank you so much for being here today. Is there anything else that you would like to add to the guests or anybody out there?
Stop in life every once in a while. Enjoy what's in front of you. It's so easy to haunt your past or to shoot for a better future, but stopping and just taking a breath and enjoying the green grass or the blue sky or the warm day. I mean, that really that's fulfillment. And if you could be happy in the little things, then anything beyond that is just grand.
Awesome. Thanks, Ethan. Spoken from a true entrepreneur. You can get onto his website, the Fun Finder, at 103rd Street app.
Yep.
Okay, go check it out. Hit that up. All of you startups out there that are looking for money, see Ethan. He'll help you out. All the VCs out there, this guy can help you out as well. I appreciate your time. Thank you for being
Thank you
here
for
today.
having me.
For sure. Cool.